Hey Anna, thanks for joining me today. Great to have you on. Before we get into everything, let's first give a bit of context to who you are and what you do. Because, of course, Aon on the website, say you offer clarity and confidence to make better decisions. But what does it actually mean, and what's your role within Aon?
Hi, Tobias, and thanks for having me here today. So, as you said, I'm part of the Aon M&A team here in Switzerland. I joined Aon actually 14 years ago. I'm sixth year here in the M&A space. As you say, dealing with different, we are well known as insurance due diligence provider as well as a transaction liability service provider. So our main focus where we have started is insurance due diligence services and reps and warranties or warranty and indemnity insurance placements.
Okay. And so your specific role is then within the transactions team. So can you just walk me through if you have a new client coming in, what's your exact role?
Yeah, happy to do so. If you have a client who is looking after a specific target, we will then step in as they're looking after an insurance advisor. So we will be, in the first instance, providing insurance due diligence services, looking into the target's specific insurance and risk areas. We will be looking into their current structure with regards to insurance and risk management. We will be interviewing them and asking them how they are approaching some risks so that we have a great outcome for our clients then.
Isn't that a lot of pressure? I can imagine that insurance is probably and risk assessment. That's one of the more pressureful topics within an M&A transaction.
It really depends on the client and obviously also on the timelines in such a deal. So there is, of course, some pressure if the client is a strategic partner and if there is a bidding process and the client really wants to have this target,
Mhm.
we'll get this pressure out of the client on our end. So we will really have to manage this pressure and get the best outcome in the end for the client. So
Mhm.
yeah, it is definitely a big pressure sometimes.
Yeah, let's talk about those clients. What kind of clients do you work with? Because, of course, you sent your portfolio over. There's a big variety. Is there any common denominator you find in your clients?
Yeah, we are dividing our clients in two areas, which are strategic buyers, and those include corporate clients, which are probably served by our Aon colleagues in the background
Mhm.
with daily insurance broking services. And the other part are financial sponsors like private equities or infrastructure funds, which are looking to buy a specific target in one of the countries and adding this target to their portfolio companies.
Mhm. Do you have any sector focus?
Not really. We have persons which are really looking into specific sectors,
Mhm.
but we are, as Aon, we are not really specialized into one field. So we are
Yeah.
advising a lot of different industries and clients.
Yeah. I can imagine that it could be quite complicated. I saw in your portfolio that you do have quite a lot of life sciences clients, quite hard to explain industries, if you will. Now, I can imagine that in the risk and in the insurance space, you have to often be quite familiar with the individual risks within a given sector. How do you handle that then if you handle so many different sectors?
Yeah, this is a good question, actually. So my part would be that I have the overall deal or part for the client,
Hmm.
and then I'll be, as you said, we have different industries which we are working on, and Aon has built up a different industry sector, and there we have people who are really servicing clients into this industry.
Hmm.
Like, for example, as you said, we have an industry sector group who is looking after heavy metal clients, food and
Hmm.
beverage, life science. And once I have a specific target for like food or beverage, I will then reach out to my colleagues
Hmm.
into this group and ask to have a chat around this specific target. And
Hmm.
of course, to capture anything which is important for our client and the industry.
So you're almost building a little task force per deal then.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
Nice.
we are bringing different angles and people to our team so that we have a global overview of this specific industry
Hmm.
and everyone can say what is really important for this target or
Yeah.
this group.
Yeah. Interesting. Talking about your team, you recently, were promoted to head of the team, head of M&A transaction solutions for the Switzerland market. I understand you do handle more than Switzerland, but maybe you can also dive a bit into that. But how does your team look like now?
Maybe I can say that we are part of a global
Mm.
M&A practice which
Yeah.
contains 300 people approximately. We are adding new talents and people to the group. We are,
Yeah.
as you said, we are part of the DACH region.
Yeah.
And my role is to set the scene here in Switzerland.
Yeah.
In the DACH region, we are currently 18 people, and here on the ground in Switzerland, we are currently three of us,
Hmm.
and we are about to hire two more person for next year. So a lot of ongoing stuff at the
Yeah.
moment.
That's exciting. Yeah. Who are you currently looking to hire for? Because, of course, we have a lot of talents also listening to the podcast. So, who are you currently looking for to fill?
So actually, we are looking for a person who is a project manager for insurance due diligence
Mm.
services. This person will then have, as I have in the beginning of my career, will take the lead on any insurance due diligence
Mm.
projects. And the second person, we are looking to hire someone who is an M&A lawyer who will then be responsible in the Swiss market for the placement of any M&A insurances for M&A transactions.
Awesome. Let's see if we find someone like that.
Yeah, I will be
Great.
glad to hear something.
Yeah, so let's put a bit of meat on the bone. I'm curious about the transaction. Let's go a bit into the deal room because, of course, you've been with Aon now for, I think, 14 years. So you must have seen quite a lot of transactions in that time.
Yeah, actually, I did. Yeah, and a lot of different ones and interesting ones. One happened in 2019. It was the spin-off of Galderma from Nestle,
Mm.
where we have been advising the private equity during the due diligence process. So we have provided our insurance due diligence
Mm.
services since the beginning of the process. And there we had a big pressure because of the timeline. It was really a bidding process with different corporate
Mm.
strategic buyers. So we did get 2 weeks or so to finalize our work with a lot of pressure, of
Mm.
course. And this one really is still in my mind because you had to work with different companies and advisors
Mm.
because we didn't get in the end any kind of information because Nestle was a spin-off and require data protections. They didn't disclose hardly anything during
Yeah.
the process. And in carve-outs, you have the situation that the target or Galderma in this
Mm.
case lost their coverage after the
Yeah.
spin-off. And then you have to build up a complete new scene
Yeah.
and work out insurance costs and set up a new program, how it should look like, and what kind of limits they have to
Mm.
purchase. And this one was really tough.
Yeah.
But in the end, our bidder won, and we were really lucky to support them
Yeah.
after the signing and setting up a new whole new area for them. So
Mm.
everything has to be set up as of scratch. And yeah, it was really funny because we have to manage summer holidays. People were not around. We had to organize a lot of different stuff and different people in the beginning.
Yeah. Sounds like building a plane while you're already flying, eh?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and obviously, two worlds coming together. On the one hand, you have the private equity world
Yeah.
who's looking after different stuff, and maybe figures are more important for
Yeah.
them than the insurance coverage. And on the other hand, you have the corporate people who are really
Mm.
looking into the details of the coverage, and then
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to explain for whom is what important, and you have to build up the bridge between
Yeah.
those two parties.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I suppose you're working a lot closely with a lot of advisors, other consultancy firms.
Yeah, that's true. So we are working also with deal advisors. Sometimes they reach out and ask ourselves if we can support them with a warranty and indemnity insurance because
Yeah.
they have a specific client, a seller who needs a specific solution,
Yeah.
or any legal advisors who are supporting the transaction and are
Mm.
sitting next to the client, the seller, or the buyer in the end,
Yeah.
who will be reaching out to us and ask for help around insurance areas.
Okay, so I suppose often you also come in as a second party
Yeah,
from what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah, that's true.
yeah, yeah. And looking at that Galderma deal, or also at a typical transaction or carve out in general, what kind of risks are you looking at? What's the first thing you look at in a transaction like that?
In corporates, it's really interesting because everything has to build up as of scratch and you
Mm,
have to install everything new. But we typically look after the assets which has to be
yeah,
insured, like under a property and business interruption
yeah,
insurance, and any third party liability risks such as public and products
mm, yeah,
liability, management risks such as directors and officers liability. And these days, of course, cyber being everywhere
yeah,
is one of the hottest topic at the moment for
yeah,
advisors and investors.
yeah. Wow. Do you already have these internal resources? Because of course, hiring these kind of experts in the cyberspace, that is quite in the cyberspace, but in the cybersecurity space, that is quite tough, of course. So do you already have that internal, let's say, task force, as we discussed earlier, for the specific cyber risks?
Yeah, it's interesting because we have broadened our value proposition in the last couple of months.
Mm,
So we are adding quite new stuff every now and then, and cyber is one of
yeah,
the areas which we have built. I think 2 years ago, we have internal people, a cyber, or we call it digital M&A.
yeah,
And those people are really sitting at Aon and looking into the cyber area of a
yeah,
target. This means that they joined us from big fours, law firms, or whatever,
yeah,
and they are really screening the target. It could be just as of outside, so online. They are
yeah,
doing screenings in dark nets or wherever,
yeah,
or if with the permission of the management company, they are also it's also possible for them to really dig in and see where the cybersecurity is not that good as it could be. It's
yeah,
not really linked to insurance, cyber insurance.
mm,
It's really on the cybersecurity world,
yeah.
which will then have obviously an impact on the cyber insurance placements in the
Yeah.
end.
I'm curious if you have any story about where that became a real issue in the transaction process, where you, yeah, identified really big risks in that space.
Yeah, actually, I did have one which is really in my mind, and it was a real red flag for the investor. It was 1.5 years ago where we were approached for different areas, and one of
Mm,
them was cyber. And we were working for a private equity who was looking for a company, not really as a cyber heavy risk company, but
mm,
the company was dealing with different datas. And our client said, okay, I want to engage you for online research for this company. And in the end, our colleagues, they found out that in the dark net, they found that there is a leakage of some
mm,
client data of this target company. And it could cost the investor a couple of millions if this would have then be made
wow.
publicly. So in the end, there has of course been a couple of other issues with this target, but the
Mm,
main one was really that, yeah, these data were in this darknet out for sale. So
wow.
they, in the end, decided to don't move forward with this transaction.
Wow. So there's actually been probably quite some significant security breaches in the past that then have been uncovered by
Yeah,
you. That's a quite technical topic already, but are there any areas or risks that are too hot for you that you don't insure? That's an area where your expertise isn't so great. Let's say human capital, intellectual property. Are there any areas that you say, okay, this is not really our expertise, or do you really cover the full spectrum?
yeah, financial due diligence and legal
Of
due
course, yeah. Yeah,
diligence
yeah, yeah,
are obviously HR stuff is not
yeah.
really our main area. I think we have started now, as you said, as I said in the beginning, with different approaches, so like
Yeah,
intellectual property and human capital,
yeah,
which is obviously not really insurance related, but
mm,
also there we have internal people who are looking after such areas
yeah,
or litigation as well. So we
yeah.
really have a broad team who's looking after different angles.
Awesome. In your portfolio, I actually also saw the spin-off of Elanco and Bayer Animal Health, and that's something I'm quite interested in. I'm not sure if you've been involved in that transaction, but I actually started my career at Bayer, And that's, of course, a corporation that has a long history of spin-offs, of carve-outs, of restructuring. If I look at the materials sector, that at some point became Covestro, if we can look at the crop science sector, and just a lot of restructuring over the past 15, 20 years.
Hmm.
Does it make it easier if a company is so used to that kind of restructuring? Because I could imagine there's probably many companies, that are quite new to a spin-off like that. Does it make it easier if you work with a company that does it pretty much all the time?
Yeah, it surely does because those guys, they are really familiar with the processes and
Mm.
they know what's coming when and why do we have to do this and this. So it's, yeah, I would say it would be, or it is easier if somebody has already been involved in a spin-off.
Yeah, interesting. And let's talk a bit about also your role, because of course we already addressed that you've been, recently also promoted to head of a small team you're leading now. That's a growing team. In our pre-interview, we already discussed that. Obviously you were not surprised because you've done a good job, and you also expected to at some point hopefully be promoted. But in the M&A world, is of course a very male-dominated world. So if you look at your career path, you've been in the scene for quite a while. How did being a woman affect your career path in M&A?
I don't think it has been affected at all. When I started in the M&A field, I really became this opportunity from one of my managers here in Switzerland to
Mm.
join his team as a junior project manager.
Yeah.
And I had some voices internally who were saying that you are quite young, you are a woman, you will not manage this. But in the end, I didn't listen to those people or those guys.
Yeah.
I just gave my best and showed proof to those guys because I
Mm.
really wanted to show them that I will manage this as a young woman.
Yeah.
And in the end, yeah, somehow it really happened that it came good in the end.
Yeah.
And I think that one of my mottos is really that limits are excuses and that I'm always starting there where others maybe give up. And that's
Mm.
why I probably always show my best in front of
Yeah.
of anyone.
Yeah. Of course, there's also sometimes a bit of a boys' club. If I look at M&A conferences,
Yeah.
or just the deal room, also, is that something that when you also come into a transaction and you talk to those teams, corporate client teams, maybe, how do you get into that? You don't get into the boys' club, but how do you break through that?
Yeah, it's always, I'm not the person who really steps in and show my biggest voice in front of anybody.
Yeah.
So I'll be coming into a room and just listening before I say something. But as you said, really not these days anymore, but I would say 2, 3 years ago, really often when I came into a meeting, there were like maybe nine
Mm.
guys and one woman, which was me. And a lot of times, those guys thought that I'm a secretary and I'll be writing the protocol or whatever. But
Yeah.
in the end, yeah, I had always to prove myself and show them I'm able to do this and I'm
Yeah.
able to give my best and I'll be always doing my best.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I have women in front of me or a
Yeah.
man in front of me. But it was not always easy situation, I can tell you.
Yeah. How do you react to that? And that must be such a strange situation when someone assumes you're the secretary when you come into the room.
Yeah, I'm a really balanced person and I can just laugh about it because it's a type of respect when a person in the beginning thinks already that you are it's like a stamp. And from my point of view, the more respect you have about a person, the more you will get out of this person. It's not always easy, but I always try to laugh about the situation.
Yeah, that also makes it more fun.
Yeah.
For young women who want to enter the M&A space today, of course, it's a different time. It's not like you've been in there for decades. But what would you advise young women that want to enter the M&A space?
I never asked to have a leadership position, to be honest,
Mm.
because it's not always easy also to be in a leadership position,
Yeah.
especially in these days where you have this whole home office stuff. I really have had great supporters in my career. One of
Mm.
them is our global M&A CEO, who is really supporting young people who are willing to achieve something. Gave me or a group of them. One of them is my former direct manager, who is now our EMEA M&A CEO and my direct manager, who really said, we want to have you on board and we want to support you and
Mm.
bring you to the next level. It's really important that you have people beside you or in front of you who are challenging you and who are supporting you,
Yeah.
challenging, not who are
Yeah.
really want to bring out the best out of you. And this
Yeah.
is something which really impacted my career in the past few years. And I will really encourage everyone who's really want to do something, speak to different persons, bring out the best of them, and have supporters around you who
Mm.
see what you are doing and how you are working and what you are able to do.
Yeah. Anna, thank you so much. That was so insightful and so valuable. If our listeners now want to reach out to you, either about the positions or about the general question, where can they reach you?
They can reach me, of course, on LinkedIn and directly via email, wherever they want. So happy to provide any more insights around my background or career. Whenever there is a question, I'm open to discuss this.
Awesome. Anna, thank you so much for taking the time.